Hello, welcome back to By Sword and Musket, our weapons channel. Uh, I would like to introduce you to a new concept in gun collecting. Now, to the novice, or maybe specialist in one field, it might look like I know an awful lot about guns, or compared to the average Joe in the UK, I would like to think myself that I know a fair bit about my subject. But I want to introduce a new concept to perhaps the beginner, the person that it is wanting to invest in guns, invest his effort, his interest, his likes and dislikes, and his time. And I want to introduce to them that the idea that the people that they are talking to on the other side of the table or down the end of the telephone line know it all may be a little bit of a stretch, because I don't. Here's the great revelation is I don't know it all. And I have to remind myself of that if I'm getting into a heated argument with anybody about what something is or isn't. But that's not really the main drive behind my reasoning for doing these video talks. My reasoning is that I would like people to collect and appreciate build quality, history, and I would like them to join in the preservation and onward life of these objects. They are merely objects, but in the same way that I might not be able to understand somebody who collects stamps or bottles of wine that he can't open, maybe a gun that you can't shoot comes under the same heading. So I'm going to show you a gun which I am having terrible trouble identifying. I've got an idea what it might be, and I've got a couple of really good books, but this is an illustration of how complicated this subject can get, and how you can tie yourself in knots going backwards and forwards, trying to work out what you've got in front of you. And to that extent, I know there will be an expert on this subject or someone who's specialized in this particular make of weapon who will take one look at it and know within 30 seconds exactly what it is. Personally, I don't. My gun collecting story really started after pistols and revolvers were banned in this country. And due to the the complicated nature of the Home Office Act on firearms, I have established that I can own this pistol. It's not deactivated, by the way. So let's get down to it and see what we're talking about. Whee! Right, I'm going to switch you off and turn you sideways. So hang on. So here we go. On go the gloves. You can tell straight away we've got a nickel finish. Fairly easy. So Smith & Wesson experts, what have we here? You might think that you already know, but I'll go through some of the points and describe to the novices what we have here. So the first thing to do is I've got a live revolver in my hand. We must check if it is safe. So with this one, we pull back at the top. Instantly we get our glove caught in it. Anyway, we can see straight away that we have a 6-shot cylinder, and that is empty. Now, for the art of not having to repeat this too many times, if you look down this cylinder, you can see a step in it. Now that narrows it down to a couple of calibers. We are talking about a 44 here. So it's a 44 with a step. 6-shot. Top break revolver. Finished very nicely in nickel. Now, I believe this is the original nickel finish. Sorry, I haven't really explained that. I bought this at auction at long distance, so I never got a chance to view it. I imported it in good faith that it in one particular caliber, which I was absolutely sure was what we call an off-ticket caliber in this country. Turns out, or it looks like, it was in fact another particular off-ticket caliber. So the auction house, who shall remain nameless, and who I've had very good service from for many, many years in the United States of America, actually looks like they got the caliber wrong, but basic error. Quite important when you're importing something, though, because if it had turned out to be a Section 5 caliber, it could be whipped away from me, or I would have to have turned it in as soon as it arrived. But we have established, or I believe now, that this is 44 Russian caliber. So it's made by Smith & Wesson. Smith & Wesson have been kind enough to mark the top rib with the maker's name, address, and patent numbers along here. And if anybody wants to ask any very specific questions about that, I can fill them in later. But if you can't see it, there it is. And I will share that information if anybody messages me. It's got a simple half-moon sight, one single pin through there, obviously ribbed barrel. Now, the trouble with trying to identify the caliber is that this is an early revolver, and for that reason, it is not marked along the barrel on either side as to what caliber it is. So back in the day, there were an awful lot of calibers knocking around. You must have had to be pretty sure of what you had. But if we pull back the hammer, now bearing in mind this is a double action, but if we pull back the hammer in a single action style, you can see that it's a center fire cartridge. So we're talking about step cylinder, 44 center fire cartridge. That may be enough. But these revolvers, different models, were chambered in multiple calibers, and that is repeated throughout the range. You can have 44s of various types almost across the board. What else have we got? We've got what is described as a square back trigger guard. We've got this lovely ornate type, very Victorian style trigger, which is beautifully blued and sorry, not blued, is beautifully case color hardened. Isn't that nice? We have a blued trigger guard, and we have an equally attractively case color hardened hammer and blued release latch, which includes the rear sight. Now, in Smith & Wesson collecting terms, this is not an interlocking hammer. It does not lock with this top catch. Okay. What else? So it has a 5-inch barrel, 2-line address, stepped internal cylinders, non-interlocking hammer. Oh, 2 sets of cylinder notches plus lead grooves. So you've got the lead groove and the cylinder notch to help lock it up. I've measured the length of the cylinder, and if to be compared with a Frontier, this is a standard length cylinder. Now, what's so special about it? Why did I go for it in the auction? Well, I wanted a Smith & Wesson. Obviously, rubberized grips with the S&W logo in the top. But what's pretty cool about this revolver is the cylinder number. 67. That is a pretty low number. 67. And that is repeated on all the relevant components. There's 67 on the back of the cylinder. There's a 67 underneath the locking latch. I haven't taken it apart, so I don't know what the grips, if there's anything on the inside of the grips. And I haven't stripped the barrel out to see if there's any number in there. But how has this revolver survived in such wonderful condition with such an early number? Because I am looking or thinking about dates from about 1880 onwards. As I said, it's double action. So it does everything at once. Now, I have a theory. It's only a theory. Look at that little bit of loss on the barrel there in one spot. Not around the muzzle, right there on the side. There is also one patch on the cylinder. There we go, I've got it in the right position. At the front there. One patch. So that has basically been laying, kind of been laying on a flat surface. So I think that was laying in a fitted box where the barrel was supported and the cylinder was in contact. The only other contact point then you have are the grips. Now the grips are not heavily worn, neither is there acidic damage from the hand to any part of the back strap. So here we go. My theory is that this was a salesman's piece, a demonstration piece that, well, I mean, if you look at the bore and the cylinders, it's mint. The case color hardening on the trigger is mint. So I'm going to throw a challenge out there, and I know that gun collecting public of America will leap up and down off the chair, be bouncing up and down, shouting the answers at the screen. But what is it? Can anybody tell me what it is? It's in beautiful condition. I don't know if it's just a plain number 3 double action. I don't know if it's a Frontier. I don't know if it's a favorite. But it's rather nice, and I like it. And there's one other little conniption which us British have to put up with. The government in their wisdom, I bought this pre this event, decided to change their caliber list. And that included 44 Russian. Now, when I bought this, I actually thought it was 44 target, because that's what the hallowed auction company had advertised it as, and that's what I imported it as. But more investigation led me to believe that, in fact, I do believe it's 44 Russian. They moved the goalposts recently. So this revolver, which I already owned, went from being what they call a Section 58 obsolete caliber to a Section 7.1 historical weapon of interest. And then, even though I'd owned it for all that time, I had to write a letter or email to my local firearms manager and request permission to keep it. Otherwise, I had to hand it in so it could be destroyed. Because let's face it, we can all rush out and grab 44 Russian in our local gun shop. No, we can't. You know, it seems absolutely bizarre that one night it was deemed harmless and collectible. And then next night, because the politicians and the police had to bug up their various orifices, I then had to beg for forgiveness, explain it was part of my historical collection, and I was allowed to keep it, and it was part of my license. So, obscure. Now, what's more obscure is that I had a friend who had a whole load of these as a dealer. His stock was devalued overnight because they changed the law. And then every other collector under the sun who had them squirreled away had to immediately turn them in, or as I say, beg for forgiveness and grovel to be able to keep them. And these are good people. These are straight up, honest people that are only interested in firearms and weapons for collecting purposes. They wouldn't dream of shooting them. That would just devalue them or possibly damage them. So work that one out if you can. But there we go. Number 67. Number is on the cylinder there. On my finger. That's a funny story, isn't it? Anyway, if you like that, please click like and press that subscribe button, and you'll get more bizarre stories from the UK on legal gun collecting and the hoops that we have to jump through. Not that, of course, we're not massively grateful and grovel in forgiveness and thanks for being allowed to keep these ancient and wonderful pieces of history. So join me again if you dare, if you can withstand the logic of the system, and we'll see you again.